Thank you.
Kevin said to me in a slightly raspy voice. It was the first time I felt like I had heard Kevin's real voice since he and his parents, David and Jennifer, moved in with us. It had been several months since Kevin started coming to my workplace after school. Until then, our interactions were limited to him quietly eating a burger and then leaving. But this time, Kevin looked me in the eye when he spoke. It made me happy to realize that such a small thing could feel so significant, showing how much distance there had been between us. After he finished eating, he sat for more than 10 minutes, which made me a bit puzzled. As the number of customers gradually began to decrease, I took the opportunity to speak to Kevin. My shift ends in 30 minutes. Want to walk home together? Kevin looked up at me with a surprised expression, then slowly nodded. When I finished my shift and stepped out of the store, Kevin was standing there. I lightly patted Kevin's slightly hunched back, and we started walking together. I was pushing my bike, and Kevin was walking slightly behind me. Walking alongside Kevin, I couldn't help but reflect on how tall he had grown.
Hamburgers. They're always so good. I start craving them in the afternoon.
Kevin said that suddenly. I had to resist the urge to look directly at his face. Come anytime. I was so happy that I almost cried. As I tried to suppress the smile forming on my lips, Kevin stopped walking. He looked at me with a determined expression, then finally spoke.
Grandma.
The sunset was turning the sky a deep red, with the sun backlighting him. I couldn't see Kevin's face clearly.
I'm really sorry for everything.
What? What do you mean? With an expression that looked like he was about to cry, Kevin began to explain why he had never tried to talk to me before. My name is Ashley, and I'm 62 years old. I'm enjoying a peaceful retirement with my gentle husband, James, who is 7 years older than me. James worked tirelessly like a horse after founding his construction company, growing it into a small business that supports many employees. In his younger days, he was known for his somewhat arrogant attitude and aggressive business deals, often breaking industry norms. Despite his forceful management style, everyone who knew James respected him because they knew he was thinking about the future of his employees and the company. Although he could have stayed on as an executive after retiring, James handed over the reins to his capable subordinates and gracefully stepped down.
It's the younger generation that will shape the future.
Personally, I think the saying "a busy husband is a good husband" worked out well, as I prefer to have the house to myself during the weekdays. It's not that I dislike James. I just believe we need some personal space, so I decided to work at a local burger joint. James had never done any housework before because he was always busy working. However, at some point, he suddenly started cleaning without me even asking. While I'm out working part-time, he seems to enjoy cleaning the kitchen and bathroom. He buys new cleaning products and tools, and then proudly explains them to me.
This cleaner is great at removing dirt, and this one smells really good too.
In his younger days, James always had a stern expression and a tough demeanor, so it amuses me that he has become gentle and tidy with age. James doesn't seem to notice his transformation and happily hums while scrubbing the bathroom. I enjoyed cooking and serving customers at the burger joint, and every day felt fulfilling and happy. One day, I had a day off, and James was organizing the shed on our property in the afternoon. A van honked softly as it drove into our yard. Ouch! Startled by the sound of the car, I cried out while watering the potted plants by the front door. A cactus pricked the back of my hand, and as I rubbed the painful spot, A man got out of the van and walked over, laughing.
What are you doing, Mom? It's been a while.
David, you're back so suddenly. Why didn't you let us know you're coming? I opened my mouth to give my son David a piece of my mind for showing up unannounced. But then his wife, Jennifer, and their son, Kevin, also got out of the van. Really? If you're bringing the whole family, you should at least give us a heads up. I haven't prepared anything.
It's a surprise. And we'll be staying here for a while.
I was momentarily speechless, but Jennifer walked over with a smile.
Ashley, we'll be in your care for a while. Here, I brought some snacks. Let's all have some.
Jennifer handed me a crumpled paper bag. Thanks. How have you been? I exchanged the usual pleasantries, and then noticed Kevin standing a bit away, looking bored at the ground. Anyway, come on inside. I hurried to start making coffee.
I'm so tired.
Yeah, me too.
The three of them who had come back home were relaxing in the living room, chatting. Just as I finished preparing the coffee, James returned from organizing the shed, looking surprised.
Oh, David, Jennifer, and Kevin, you've grown so much.
James happily sat next to Kevin, patting him on the shoulder. Kevin, feeling a bit shy, just nodded and shook his head slightly while looking down. Kevin is 14 after all. Teen boys don't talk much at this age. It had been years since David last came back home. Due to the recent illness outbreak, he probably avoided visiting elderly parents. Over time, he stopped coming, and even after things settled down, he never visited, and we gradually stopped questioning it. So, what do you mean by staying for a while?
Just what it sounds like. We gave up our apartment and are moving in from today.
David said that calmly while eating the snacks they brought. We have plenty of spare rooms in our house, so it's true we can accommodate them. We also have guest bedding ready, so David probably thought there wouldn't be any problem with their sudden arrival. After resting and drinking coffee for a while, David started bringing in their luggage from the van. They had 3 large suitcases and 5 backpacks. Apparently, they had sold all their furniture and only brought the bare essentials. David, what about your job? Selling their home suddenly, getting rid of all their belongings, and moving back in with us isn't normal behavior. I leaned forward to ask David some questions, but James, who had been just laughing until now, gently stood in front of me.
Isn't it wonderful? How often do we get the chance to live with them?
James suggested that we see how things go for a while. You're right. I hesitated a bit, muttering more to myself than to James. David, who had been casually listening to our conversation, chuckled.
Dad is really mellowed out. You were so strict when I was younger.
Was I?
I remember getting the lowest score on a test in high school and being yelled at all night. It's a good memory now.
Jennifer leaned in, fascinated by David's story. Meanwhile, Kevin was quietly playing with his phone in the corner of the room. For a while, David and Jennifer were busy running errands, like handling Kevin's school enrollment, since they had both quit their jobs. When they came back at night, we had casual conversations.
I've been looking for a job at the employment office, and I had an interview today.
I think it would be great if I could work at the same place as David.
That night, David and Jennifer devoured the dinner I had made. Their middle schooler, Kevin, had a small appetite and seemed skinny for his age. I felt sorry for him if the change in environment had affected his appetite. I wanted Kevin to eat more, so I made a lot of food every night. However, it was always David and Jennifer who eagerly enjoyed the meals.
Tomorrow, I'm going to an interview for a building manager position. They're hiring 2 people, so we're going to negotiate to get hired as a couple.
A week after this conversation, they finally got the building manager jobs. We were mostly supporting their lives since they barely had any money. I always cooked their meals as a matter of course, and they weren't paying any rent either. Since they moved in, our utility bills had skyrocketed, and they even started asking for clothes in a way that evoked sympathy.
Please bear with us until we get our paychecks and stabilize our lives. Sorry about this, Mom.
David asked in a joking manner. David had been an emotionally volatile child growing up. He would get angry over the slightest things and even damage the walls of our house. The walls he broke in his youth were still not fixed, and I was a bit afraid that if we didn't indulge him somewhat, he might erupt suddenly. Back then, James was younger too, and would confront David directly, despite his occasional violent outbursts. But now, James seemed to be tiptoeing around David and Jennifer, always wearing a polite, non-committal smile. However, there is something more concerning than financial issues. Despite having moved in a while ago, Kevin has not said a word. During dinner, James tries to talk to him about various things, but Kevin only gives vague answers or slightly moves his head, hardly engaging in conversation. He doesn't even make eye contact and seems to avoid us. Gradually, James and I began to struggle with how to interact with Kevin. After several months of this, our own lives started to feel the strain. Originally, we lived off my part-time job and our savings, so supporting them too was inevitably challenging. At this rate, we'd have to dip into our retirement savings. During a break at the burger joint where I work, I found myself deep in thought. Welcome. Oh. Kevin showed up at the burger joint where I work part-time without any warning. He was wearing his school uniform and carrying a bag, sending anxious glances in my direction, as if he had come straight from school. You came to see me. I'm so happy. Are you hungry? Kevin didn't say a word, but I encouraged him to sit at the counter, and I treated him to a burger. I explained the situation to the manager in the kitchen and said I'd pay after my shift, then watched Kevin whenever I had a moment. Don't worry about paying. Just make sure you eat well. Since I had already told Kevin not to worry about the money, he slipped away while I was serving other customers. I felt a bit sad, but seeing the clean plate where he had sat made me smile. From that day on, Kevin started coming to the burger joint almost every day to eat a burger. Since I don't work every day, I was curious if he came when I wasn't there. But when I asked my colleagues, they said he didn't. Knowing that Kevin came to the shop when I was there made me happy. Even on rainy days, sometimes in his tracksuit, Kevin would show up. He still didn't speak or express any gratitude, but I began to feel a strange bond between us. One day, David and Jennifer told me they were going on a business trip for 3 days and asked me to look after Kevin. They told me without any explanation, suddenly, on the morning of their departure.
We're going on a business trip, so take care of things for 3 days.
Then, David and Jennifer drove off in the van. Why would they go on a business trip if they're building managers? I wondered a bit, but since David and Jennifer never talked about their job specifics, I decided not to think too much about it. On a sunny day, seeing James hang out there bedding made me wish they would be more considerate of us.
When I was David's age, I was so focused on work that I didn't notice much around me.
James hung the laundry as he said that with a gentle smile. Is that really so? I thought to myself as I pruned the potted plants. James was indeed busy with work and often came home late when he was younger, but he always made time for the kids and family. David and Jennifer seemed somewhat disinterested in their son, Kevin, which left me feeling a persistent sense of helplessness. In the afternoon, while I was working at the burger joint, Kevin came in again that day. He usually arrived around the same time, so I signaled with my eyes for him to take his seat, but he seemed less energetic than usual. Did something happen at school? I didn't say anything, trying to be considerate, and silently placed a burger in front of him.
Thank you.
Without looking up, he said this to me in a slightly raspy voice. It was the first time I had heard him speak properly since they started living with us. I was so genuinely happy that I couldn't help but ask again, "Did you have fun at school?"
Well,
But he gave me a vague answer to that. It was just one word, but I was happy that Kevin spoke to me. I must have radiated some extra cheerfulness when interacting with other customers, as the manager chuckled at me.
You're in a good mood today.
After eating his burger, Kevin sat quietly, staring at the table. What's up? Maybe he's just resting after eating. I watched Kevin casually, but after more than 10 minutes of sitting there after finishing his meal, I began to feel a bit puzzled. As the number of customers gradually began to decrease, I took the opportunity to speak to Kevin. My shift ends in 30 minutes. Want to walk home together? Kevin looked up at me with a surprised expression, then slowly nodded. I asked the manager in the back if I could leave early, and when I finished my shift and stepped outside, Kevin was waiting. I lightly patted Kevin's slightly hunched back, and we started walking together. I was pushing my bike, and Kevin was walking slightly behind me. Walking alongside Kevin, I couldn't help but reflect on how tall he had grown.
hamburgers. They're always so good. I start craving them in the afternoon.
Kevin said that suddenly. I had to resist the urge to look directly at his face. Come anytime. I was so happy that I almost cried. As I tried to suppress the smile forming on my lips, Kevin stopped walking. He looked at me with a determined expression, then finally spoke.
Grandma,
The sunset was turning the sky a deep red. With the sun backlighting him, I couldn't see Kevin's face clearly.
I'm really sorry for everything.
What? What do you mean? Kevin's sudden apology made me quickly set my bike to the side of the road and look at his face. He looked like he was about to burst into tears, his lips trembling slightly.
Dad always told me not to talk to you and Grandpa.
David did?
Mom and Dad aren't normal.
According to Kevin, before they moved into our house, David told him not to talk to me or James.
He said that if I got too attached, it would be troublesome later, and as a child, I might say something unnecessary. So he ordered me not to talk to both you and Grandpa at all.
Kevin revealed everything, explaining how David had strictly commanded him. Why? I almost spoke, but swallowed my words. Knowing David's rough personality, I could imagine what might happen if he got angry. Kevin probably felt he had no choice but to obey. I couldn't help but frown. Kevin, sounding truly distressed, told me that David had been stealing and selling James's collection from the shed on our property. In the shed, there are many valuable items that have been passed down from James's parents. There are many old antiques, but James often boasts that some of them are quite valuable. James manages this shed and keeps it locked. He also organizes and cleans it regularly a few times a month, so there's no way he wouldn't notice if things were stolen.
Dad was excited because he got a great price for something he took to the pawn shop the other day, and they're using that money to travel.
What? It's not a business trip?
They gamble every day, and when he loses, He gets angry a lot. When we were at home, debt collectors would often knock on our door.
I started to feel lightheaded. I had sensed something was off. The small feelings of unease I had been experiencing all began to come together. Kevin told me that the ultimate plan was to drive James and me out of the house and sell everything valuable. After sharing this, Kevin had a gloomy expression. As the evening sky darkened, our shadows faded away. "Shall we go home?" Kevin nodded slightly and followed me as I pushed my bike. While looking ahead, I gripped the handlebars tightly. I couldn't see Kevin's expression behind me, but I could hear him faintly sniffing. I guessed he was crying, and I couldn't bring myself to look back. Kevin, still a middle schooler, had no choice but to follow his parents' orders, yet he bravely told me everything. I can't let his courage go to waste. After we got home, I explained the situation to James. James checked the shed and said with a slightly troubled expression,
It does seem like some things are missing.
James was somehow smiling. Seeing him act as if it was someone else's problem, I decided to speak firmly. "Didn't you actually realize that David was stealing from the shed?"
Well, maybe they were struggling and needed the money.
"If they were struggling, they could have just said so. This is like theft."
Theft is a strong word, isn't it, Kevin?
Kevin, who had been listening quietly, hung his head. James, still wearing his usual gentle smile, seemed to want to avoid conflict. I couldn't stand it and grabbed Kevin's shoulder, glaring at James. The one who suffered the most, caught up in his parents' troubles, was Kevin, and we were the ones who allowed it.
But even if things are missing from the shed, we can't be sure David took them.
I handed my phone to James. For a moment he looked shocked, but on the screen there was a photo of David and Jennifer, cautiously loading what seemed to be antiques from the shed into the van. The photo, likely taken secretly, appeared to have been shot through the gap in a window. I zoomed in on the photo to make it clearer for James. It was undeniable proof that David had stolen our antiques and sold them at a pawn shop. Clear evidence of a crime. "Who do you think took this photo?" "Kevin did. Kevin told me about his parents' crimes."
Indeed, these are our collectibles, and this is a very valuable item.
"Don't you understand yet? Kevin is showing us what he wants us to do, what we need to do now." I couldn't help but cry as I pleaded with James. I hugged Kevin tightly, continuing to cry. Though he was growing into a young man, Kevin was still just a child. I could never forgive David and Jennifer for forcing Kevin to deceive his grandparents. James, initially flustered by my emotional outburst, eventually placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, looking resolute.
All right,
When I looked up, I was stunned, and my heart skipped a beat. James had the sharp look in his eyes that I hadn't seen in years. It was as if he had returned to the days when he was known as a tough CO, feared for his aggressive business deals. The next day, David and Jennifer returned from their trip, unaware of anything. After placing some of their luggage in their room, they walked into the living room, chatting happily, only to freeze the moment they opened the door.
sit.
James commanded David in a short, firm voice. David, who had been joking around until recently, noticed James's serious demeanor and obediently sat on the chair.
We're tired from the trip. Is there any food?
Do you have any debts?
Well, just a bit of gambling.
David was instantly cowed by James's intimidating tone. Jennifer, sitting next to him, stayed silent, watching the situation unfold.
The items in the shed have been passed down in our family. How could you sell them without permission?
Wait, I didn't sell anything. I don't know what you're talking about.
James immediately took the paper from his lap and placed it on the table. After hearing Kevin's story, James had gone to the pawn shop and explained the situation, getting a receipt issued. Although the pawn shop owner initially resisted, citing privacy concerns, James managed to get the receipt with the help of his former business associates. It was undeniable proof that David had stolen and sold items from the shed.
So, why did you sell them?
Well, just laugh it off. We're family, right?
Of course, I'll forgive you. But
James stood up and left the room. David and Jennifer exchanged worried glances, their faces clouded with uncertainty about what was to come. James soon returned with two large men who looked down at David and Jennifer with stern expressions.
I have a friend who runs an addiction clinic. I asked him to make room for you.
David's eyes widened, and Jennifer froze with her mouth agape. The two large men, both wearing white coats, grabbed David and Jennifer's wrists as soon as they appeared.
Wait a minute. What is this? What's going on?
Please wait. Who are these people? This is scary.
I was holding Kevin tightly and watching the scene unfold from the kitchen.
They will get treatment for their gambling addiction. Don't worry about Kevin until they recover. Take them away.
David and Jennifer were being taken away by the large men, shouting loudly as they were led out.
This can't be real. Dad, please listen. I'll work hard from now on, I promise.
Me too. I'll work as hard as I can. Please forgive us.
They pleaded with James through their tears. Instead of involving the police, James decided to send them to a rehab facility. He firmly believed that this was the best way to secure Kevin's future.
A parent works quietly for their children. David and Jennifer have failed as parents. It's my responsibility for making them this way, and I'll find them jobs when they come back.
With that, James left the room, and David and Jennifer were taken to the clinic by the staff. In the now quiet house, Kevin looked dejected. I wanted to say something comforting, but nothing came to mind. James stood in front of Kevin and sat down gently.
It's going to be okay. Everything will be all right. I will make sure they become better people.
Grandpa,
I won't turn a blind eye anymore. For now, we'll be your parents. Study hard.
James, with a gentle smile, placed his large hand on Kevin's head and patted him. Kevin closed his eyes in embarrassment, but eventually started to laugh. After being taken to a psychiatric clinic, David and Jennifer were diagnosed with gambling addiction and admitted to a rehabilitation facility. They seemed to realize that they couldn't continue living as they were. Although they were initially reluctant, James's stern persuasion convinced them to enter the facility quietly. It seemed as if James had reverted to his younger, stricter self. But he remained calm and gentle with Kevin and me.
I have to be tough with David. My expectations go far beyond this level of results.
That's true, I responded in my mind. For Kevin, being left behind while both his parents went to a facility must have been a significant shock. What can I do to help right now? With these thoughts, I continued my part-time job at the burger joint as usual. After school, Kevin would come by almost every day and eat a burger, talking about his day, his complaints, and various other things became one of my favorite parts of the day.
today at school,
With his mouth full of a burger, Kevin now showed the youthful innocence appropriate for his age. It seemed Kevin was naturally a talkative child. I want to get to know more about my beloved Kevin from now on.